So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. Thanks for being part of this. And just want to encourage all of you to be part of this conversation. We want this to be a dialogue between all of us. We are better together, and we are better when we share our thoughts and our ideas. So please give and receive in this conversation. And know that some of the things that your church might have been talking about, some of the things that you have been thinking through, might have been simple for you, but it might be brand new or revelation to someone else. So don't be afraid to jump in and share. If you don't want to jump in, maybe you just want to raise your hand. That works as well. I can call on you, and then you can share. Or even we have the chat box as well that you can participate in if you want to throw in some thoughts and ideas. So feel free to use the chat box, but we want everyone to be part of this. So feel free to jump in at any time. And let me just pray before we continue. Let's pray. God, I just thank you so much for being ever present in our lives. And we just pray that this conversation will be fruitful. And may you just bless everyone here with the incredible thoughts of all these amazing leaders. And may they just help our ministries flourish as we move forward in this weird, awkward, hard season that we're in. So thank you for being with us, and just ask you to just be present in our hearts and our minds as we continue. And we pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. Well, we're going to just start off here with a poll question and wanting to know where your guys' churches are at in terms of, if you've been talking about launching, has there been a month thrown out that you are thinking about? Is that going to be May this month, June, July, August, September? Are you guys waiting until phase 4, which is basically when the after larger than 50 groups are going to be allowed, or is it still up in the air, still unsure? So if you guys are just able to interact with that poll, that should be up on your screen. And just be great just to get a sense of where everyone is at in their ministry and what they've been talking about with their staffs. And then I'll share these results with all of us, and we can kind of see where everyone is at. So just give a few more moments for some people to do that. Some people are saying they can't see the poll, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know why. Yeah, you can, I guess, if you just want to type in the chat there, if you guys have any thoughts of what month you might be opening, or if you're still not sure. All right, I'm going to end this and let everyone see. So it looks like we have someone that is thinking about May for their in-person gatherings. One person in September, a few people that are not until phase 4, and the majority of us, we're still talking about it. We're still thinking, we're still unsure, still lots of conversation and dialogue to be had. So I do have one more question for you guys, and that is, what size is your church? Because I think this is a big factor. So just wanting to know, is it more than 50 or less than 50? So you just want to engage with that. Looks like it's coming in pretty quick. So thank you. But just give you a few more seconds. And here we are. It looks like everybody that answered is more than 50. So I think that puts us all in that category. That makes things a lot harder than if we were under 50. So just before we get into some questions that I put on our Facebook group and threw out in the email that I sent, those are the questions that we're just going to follow through and chat about and see what everyone's thoughts are. But there's a couple things that I heard this week and last week that just really stood out for me, and they just kind of opened my eyes and just brought a new perspective. And the first thing is when we start getting into these in-person gatherings, and when we have that date that we're going to start gathering again, we're going to create a divide between those people that are ready and are coming to church in person, and those that are still not comfortable and are wanting to stay at home. And I think it's very important that we don't create that divide in our church and make people feel like they're part of two separate groups, or make people feel like they're less Christian, or they're not as faithful if they decide to continue with church online. I don't think we would ever do that intentionally, but it could definitely come across that way, just intent or not intentionally. If we kind of forget about online and just totally focus on in person, there's going to be that group of people that may feel left out, that may feel like they're no longer part of the church, that have just been left aside. So when I heard that, that really stood out, and I thought that that's a really great thing to keep in mind. That when we do start this in person, that we're making sure we're thinking about those people that do come, but also thinking about the people that are part of our church family that are still wanting to do church at home. And then the second thing came from Orange Conference. I got to attend the very first main session. And it was something that Reggie Joyner had said about people that have a Sunday at church mindset and a Sunday at home mindset. And I think everyone on this Zoom call right now has a Sunday at church mindset. That's just the way we think and we work, and we think, of course, church is valuable. Of course, we're going to go to church on Sunday. It's our default answer. But we know for the majority of the population, they have a Sunday at home mindset. Church is kind of the second priority. To them, family might be more important than church. Hockey might be more important than church. There's other things that take priority. And it's sometimes hard to get in that Sunday at home mindset. And I think through this pandemic, there's going to be a few more people that have transitioned into that camp of a Sunday at home mindset. I'm going to share my screen with you here. So just bear with me. Give me a moment to pull this up. And it was just a screenshot from Reggie Joyner's talk, just with some percentages, just to give a little bit of a perspective on this. So, all right. Can everyone see that little image of boomers, Gen X, millennials? Just give me a thumbs up if you're looking at that. Perfect. So sorry, it's a little blurry again. This was a screenshot of a video that I took. But it shows in that first down arrow percentage of those demographics that would call themselves a Christian, and then the percentage of those people that would consider themselves church attenders. And that might not even be regular church attenders. That just means that they said that, yes, they do attend church. So you can see that there is a pretty big gap between people that would call themselves a Christian and people that attend church, right? It's even about a 50% drop or more than 50% in all those categories, from Christian to churchgoers. And what I think we're going to find in this pandemic that there's going to be a few more people jumping into that. Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm not physically going to a church. It might take them longer to get back into that category. So we can't forget about those Sunday at home mindset people. And it just, for me, brought this new perspective of, the people outside our church walls. Before they were just, we thought of them as the non-Christian that we need to bring in. But looking at these data points and thinking about the people that aren't comfortable coming back to church yet. Now they're people that used to come to our church are outside our church walls. And it's this other group that we need to think about outside our Sunday morning services. And even if you look at the bottom there, this is directly correlated to the millennials, that 80% of millennials believe in God, 79% of them believe in heaven, and 67% believe that religion is important. So looking at that, there's a huge population outside our church walls that is very open to spiritual, faith-based conversations, but yet they're not part of our in-person gatherings. So as we start to consider and think about going to in-person gatherings, let's all remember and consider those Sunday at home people that used to be part of our church family, and even those that have never been part of our church family that we can continue to reach out to and connect back into our church. So let's get into these questions. And I got these questions from a blog called Everyday Kids Ministry. And they have been fantastic these last few weeks and posting some really great stuff. So I'd encourage you guys, if you want to, check them out. They've been posting all different sorts of things about kids ministry and related to starting up again, about family services, how pastors, senior pastors need to react to a family service, what parents' mindset need to be if you go to a family service, social distancing, and all that kind of stuff. So I threw that link in the chat box, and feel free to check that out. So first question for us to consider, and guys, yeah, we're gonna start jumping into this conversation. What is our local government saying? So I'll start off by, I think it's definite that we all know gatherings need to be less than 50 if they are in person. What else have you been hearing from governments or news sites as regards to kind of restrictions and all that kind of stuff?
My understanding too, that you still have to social distance within that, and outside is preferable. But you can do up to 50 in a building, but they say outside is preferable.
Yeah.
I've also heard that if you can't safely accommodate for 40 people, like if you can't social distance, or if you can't ensure that when people are coming or leaving their social distancing, then you have to do smaller numbers.
I think I noticed also they had a thing posted if you're hanging out like closer with families, like to hang out with one or two households and kind of keep it to a smaller friend circle.
Yeah, one of the things that we found out through, I think it was through one of our pastors who found out through their MLA, that we found very interesting, was that 50 people gathering limit means 50 people gathering in a building. So it's not like per room or per space, but it's per gathering in a building. So that doesn't mean you can have 35 adults in the auditorium and then 25 kids in your kids space, because that would be over 50, right? So that throws in a whole huge other dynamic, thinking that your total is 50. So if you're thinking volunteers, you got to minus that from your 50, right? And then that's going to dwindle down to 35 people total. And then if you have 2 kids per parent, right, you're getting 15 kids max and 15 parents. And if you're having people that aren't parents coming, then, 8 kids and the rest adults. So yeah, it's one of those things that we found out. And I just heard yesterday, and this is from Dr. Tam, that they are strongly recommending masks now for going out in gatherings. So I know masks have been very controversial, even in the different provinces and the higher ups in the government, and what Justin Trudeau has been saying, and Dr. Henry's been saying, and Mr. Dix, all that. Masks have been one of those hot controversial topics. Do they help? Do they not help? But Dr. Tam just said yesterday that they do recommend it now, just because they're finding, I think it was, let me pull it up here so I'm quoting this right. 40% of COVID-19 cases are transferred from people who don't have symptoms. So they're finding that even people that are showing no signs of it, that are going out in public, are the ones that are transferring it to other people. And masks are the things that don't prevent you from getting it. It prevents you from, it's just another layer from preventing you sharing it with other people. So anything else that you guys have heard in the news as far as what the government is saying, restrictions, guidelines, anything like that? All right, let's get into more kids ministry, church related. Next question. What are your families going to be ready for? I think that's a big question. Has anyone done a church survey or a family survey or anything like that? Anybody else says yes? Just give a thumbs up if you've done a survey. Got a few people. Those that have, have you got your results back? And if so, would you be able to just share with us what you guys have found out? Sorry, I think Glenn, I see Glenn talking, but your mic is muted. And Ariel, then we'll go to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a discussion this morning about all these different things, and we are sending out a survey for the church, and it'll calculate all the different ministries and the different people groups. And hopefully by next week, we'll get it out early next week, and then we'll get the survey back. So it's an anonymous survey. So it's just to get numbers and get a feel of where our strengths are and where we're lacking in different areas and the things that we're doing right now. So yeah.
Awesome. Ariel?
Yeah, so we sent out a survey, and just the survey that we used was limited in terms of how many responses we could gather, but we got 40 responses. So in general, we have a fair amount of seniors and older people at our church. They were less willing to come in to the building, which makes sense. So we had a lot of people saying that whatever we did, they would like to keep the live stream so they have the option to watch at home. So that was the first big thing. The other thing is the families that responded. There's a lot of people who said coming back would depend on what we were doing. And the families especially were saying that it was dependent on what was happening with the kids. So depending on how kids ministry would look, it would either be one of the parents going or none of them would go, that type of deal. And yeah, a lot of people were willing to gather in smaller groups. Some people were recommending even like, why don't we just do home church and do the streaming the service still? I think in general, the general feel was keeping some form of online access for everyone because not everyone would go. And the other thing was, if we do it in the church, if we do it in a building, lots of space and small group so people feel comfortable, and even multiple services. So you were looking at doing like a rotation of services. So we do the live stream and people come in once a week or something. So yeah, so like half the people were willing to come in for some form, and half the people were undecided, or the other portion was undecided or no.
Yeah. And anyone else, maybe you haven't done a survey, but maybe you've just talked to some parents or some families. Anyone, have you guys got a sense from anyone in your church of if they're wanting and ready to come back, and at what point?
So we talked about it last night, and we took the main coordinators, and they talked to some of their people that they can contact. And the consensus for us is people need, we're going to wait. Most are not ready to come back. And we're finding even if we're going to open up, we still need volunteers to make the difference. Like I say, an evening worship, like a soft opening and an evening worship, maybe 1 hour. The hardest thing about that is still finding volunteers that are wanting to come out to make it happen, because there's only a limited staff that we have, right? Just the 3 of us. And then the majority of the folks said we want to make sure through a video or even email that all the safety precautions are in place before we would come out. So that's what we're doing now too, is making sure all that. So it's going to be a little bit of time for us, but we're still doing online, and then sending out packages to the kids through the parents, and online too. So, but it is tough. It's frustrating at times. You know?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So Mark Clark from Village Church did a very impromptu survey this week. I don't know if he did it on Twitter or whatnot, but it was just a 2-question survey. You know, are you wanting to come in to church if we have precautions and, you know, you have to wear a mask and yada, 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 or do you want to just continue with church online? And for his response was 69% said, we'll continue with online. So it was a majority that was bent towards that. But know that it does vary so much between cities, between communities, between congregations. So yeah, I would encourage you to, you know, before you start thinking again, this is back to our Sunday at church mindset and other people that have a Sunday at home mindset. Ask your people, ask your families, throw out a survey or make some phone calls and just get a sense of where they're at. You know, it can save a lot of headache of planning all this stuff and this big strategy and this launch to find out that, oh, the families weren't ready. And so we can get that on the front end, and we can help lead our families towards, you know, the best solution. Some other questions here going down the list. What do I need to do to sanitize before kids come and after kids come? What have you guys found about that, if anything at all, with sanitizing, cleaning?
I haven't really found anything, but some things that we've done is we have 2 awesome ladies who do the cleaning at our church, and they've gone through and they're washing all the toys and all the surfaces in all of our kids' classrooms, including the nursery.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those key things of, even Glenn, you were saying, talking about volunteers. This is where we would probably need more volunteers when we do decide to start doing in-person gatherings, is knowing that any surface that gets touched does need to be cleaned before it could be potentially touched by another person. So make sure it's all cleaned before and after kids are in the area. And I know most of you probably have some sort of cleaning schedule where you clean your toys and all that. But especially with younger kids and, you know, them putting toys in their mouths and all that, you know, making sure that you might have to be cleaning toys during the service, or making sure that those, high touch areas that those toys that the kids have are staying with each kid. So it's a big thing to think about, to making sure that that things are clean. Next question here. What volunteers will I have available? So I think a sub question to that, and you can just by show of hands, how many of you have volunteers that would be in that older category that would probably be more hesitant to come? If you have any of those, just hands up. Okay. Not too many, a few of you, but I know for lots of churches that is a big concern, is that there to be a bunch of senior volunteers and immune compromised people, or even volunteers that may be caring for their elderly parents, or they may be nurses and all that, and they don't want to volunteer for fear of bringing the coronavirus into your building or taking it back to those people that they're working with. So it's a big question to ask, and not assuming that your volunteers are ready to come back, but making sure that you're asking each and every one, are you ready to come back, and when are you ready to come back? And we got a comment here just back on the sanitation note, about not having books or reading materials, as the pages are really difficult to sanitize. So recommend putting them away. That's good. That's really good. I hadn't heard of that, but that definitely is true. You wouldn't want to be cleaning pages, and that even, I guess, goes to if you hand out Bibles to kids for doing memory verse or all that. We probably have to keep those on lockdown until further notice. So yeah, that's great. Keeping books and other reading material off limits for now. And another thought and question from someone in the chat: what about snack? Can we even offer it? Will volunteers have to have food safe? I'd love to open that up to hear some of your thoughts. Food, no food?
So
Lisa?
I can jump on that. Yeah, so we have not been doing snack for over a year. The reason that we have stopped doing snack was one, we moved to 2 services, and so 9 a.m. kids weren't really wanting the snack, was part of it. But bigger than that was that we have so many allergies now, and we have celiac kids that can't even have goldfish. So what we do is we only offer a snack in our nursery, but post-COVID, we probably won't be doing that. What we were doing in the nursery was having those baby mum-mums that are just made of rice flour. So those are allergen friendly, and they're individually packed. So we did those for the nursery, but the big kids from preschool on up, we just don't do snack anymore. And I find that they don't miss it, and it's been okay. So yeah, I would encourage everyone not to be afraid of going no snack, because it's worked out pretty well for us.
No, that's good. Anyone who feels like they couldn't live without snack, have any thoughts or ideas of how they would do snack?
The hard part for our church is we do a break in the middle of it where the adults get snacks. And so the kids either try to steal their snacks or they are expecting a snack when they come. So I'm not sure, maybe that'll change with the adults. Maybe we actually won't do snacks anymore, probably actually. I'm thinking about that. But if we do, I would just do packaged snacks, I think. That can be passed out.
One thing that I read when it comes to food is making sure that parents aren't bringing food for their kids into the programs. Because of course you don't know what their sanitation rules have been, or what their rules are. So making sure that there's a no outside food policy, and even going as far as, your volunteers that might want to bring a snack or bring their water bottle or something in, considering what limits you might have on those. And I guess that even goes back to that whole sanitation piece of, making sure that kids aren't bringing their own toys, soothers, car seats, and all that into your ministry without you actually visibly seeing it being cleaned before it comes in. So, and even I guess I would go, if your church does potluck, or I know Naomi, lots of the time the snack is brought by volunteers. People bring the snack for everyone, which probably won't be able to happen anymore. So, yeah, consider that as a thought of, making sure people aren't bringing outside stuff from their home that you don't know how it's been sanitized into your program and into your ministry. So yeah, going back, any other thoughts on volunteers? I know that's a big thought and probably a big concern of if you're going to have enough volunteers and all that. Any thoughts on volunteers?
Well, I don't know if any of you were able to watch the Ministry Spark webinar that happened on Tuesday, but they mentioned something that I hadn't thought of that I thought was really helpful, in that rethinking how we schedule our volunteers. So currently we have people who serve twice a month or maybe once every 3 weeks, and they were recommending not to do that and to switch to a model where you have people serving maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks in a row, and maybe you have 3 teams that do that have those that rotate through. Because the thinking behind that being, you would then have a roster of people who have not been in your building, who have not been exposed. And so if there were to be an outbreak or an exposure of some kind in your ministry, then those people that have been exposed are out, and the people that are unexposed can be back in, and then your ministry can continue to run efficiently and wouldn't be kind of brought to a standstill because of illness. And they said the same goes for us, that we need to have 2 people minimum who can do what we do, so that if we were to be exposed, then they could step in for us. And the ministry keeps going regardless of what happens with people, which I thought was really valuable information.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and even on that note as well, as you mentioned, having volunteers serve multiple weeks in a row. One of the things that I heard is the thought of, oh, well, schools are going to be, when the school's open, when daycare's open, when preschool's open, that's when we can start doing kids ministry. But one of the big differences is that with those type of schools, daycares and stuff, they have the same kids and the same teachers every single time. It's a very closed group. And we all know that our kids ministry is different kids typically every Sunday. You have your same core kids, but you have your every other week attenders, you have your twice a month, 3 times a month attenders, and you have your volunteers that may be shifting as well. It's a different group every time you meet, which is a lot harder to control and contain. And it's a big difference between daycare or school opening up and a church ministry opening up. So that's good. We'll jump to our next question here. And I think this is the biggest question of them all. And that is, what does social distancing look like for kids? I think one word is impossible, but let's open this up. What things have you guys been thinking about? What have you been hearing? How do we social distance kids, or how do we do that to the best of our abilities?
We haven't thought of any like in-class things yet, but we're looking to see like maybe doing like some sort of day camp. And one of the ideas that came up was having them just split up in families and kind of like going to different stations, and between each station we'd like like between each family, we would like sanitize it. So it'd be kind of like they'd be going around things in like a miniature golf course kind of idea.
That's great.
An idea we had, some of my staff was, for not when we're in the service, but if we're in this stage where like our bubbles are getting bigger, that maybe we start doing online services with like a life group or a core group that we have, where we all start meeting more in pods, where a couple families are coming to one home to watch the service together, so that there's a bit more community being built that way before we do the next step.
Yeah, one thing I thought about, nothing is being decided. These are just brainstorms. But one thing we thought about was we have a large, we call it the fellowship room, that's in the middle of where our classrooms are. So rather than use our classrooms where social distancing would be challenging, to use our largest space available and we have very large round tables where 4 kids could sit 6 feet apart. So we could use that as a phase 1 for our older elementary kids as a way to space them out. And another idea I had was if we were to say do like scheduled services, if we ran multiple services and people had to say register for the service that they wanted to come to. One, make sure that the same families come to the same service, so you have same contact. And 2, in our sanctuary, we could use those larger tables to seat family groups and then have activities at those tables for those kids during the service, and then you could clean the table and reset between the multiple services, just as a phase 1 option, because we were talking about getting together when we're able to gather as 100 or more, because then we could do 4 services as a church. So that was something that I had thought of.
I feel like the really, really tricky part about all this is the kids that are age 0 to 3 who run and run and run, and it's so hard to contain them. That's going to be, I think, the hardest challenge. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think 0, even 0 to grade 1 is super hard. And I like wrestle with like both sides. I see both sides of things of like, oh, it's nice. Like the kids get, see their leaders and see this, but I wrestle so much with the social distancing because I just feel like it's so unnatural and so sad to be able to have to tell kids that they can't be close, and it's unnatural for them. And I just wonder again, like I see both sides. So I'm like, I wonder what that does to them, but at the same time, like it'd be nice to actually like see them. So I very much wrestle with what would work, because even like I have a kindergarten grade 1, and they are always in each other's faces and playing. And if they had their friends over, like we've seen their friends and met with them, like just to say hello, and they'll like say hi from the car, or they'll stand there for a few minutes and talk, but not much longer. And even then I just feel sad that I have to do that with them. So again, both sides to that is like, what's more important, that they're there? Like, I also think we forget sometimes that we're in a pandemic, like when you think the bigger picture. So like we are in a pandemic, like it's a real big thing. So how can we also like respect and realize that we do have to like try to flatten the curve, but at the same time we want to reach out to our families and children, and in person is obviously the best. So I'm kind of wrestling with all those things with the social distancing aspect for kids.
Yeah, it's hard for sure. The Everyday Kids Ministry blog that I was mentioning earlier, they posted some thoughts on why social distancing is going to be tough for kids. Some of the things that they mentioned were toddlers and preschoolers can't measure 6 feet. If kids are with their friends, you aren't going to be able to keep them 6 feet apart, especially if they haven't seen them for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. If kids are together, they need to be together, right? Like imagining what that's going to do to them to say, oh, we're going to church, but yet they can't be together. And one of the other ones was, our environments thrive when they are warm and friendly, not sterile, and smiles are covered by masks, right? I think that's a huge thing as well. And Monica.
Yeah, I struggled too with when you were saying, Emily, about being in a pandemic. Like with kids going back to school June 1st, that's only going to be those people who actually need childcare almost. So it's like almost for essential workers, and there may be like 10 kids in a class. But church is that thing that's totally voluntary. Like even school, if school is voluntary, right? You don't have to send your kids to school. I was in a meeting this morning. There's out of 300 families at the school that I work at, 45 said yes, they'd send their kids to school. About 50 said they don't know. Like they don't know if it's going to be safe. And I think a lot of parents are worried about that. Like if I send my kids, will they be safe? Is there that community? And the whole, I think 90 families that said, no way, we're good at home. If we're trying to meet them where the families are at, what do they need? What do they want? Do they want to send their kids with a bunch of other kids? Well, there's a bit of a fear there still, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you mentioned, June 1st, schools are going to be open voluntarily. That's in 2 weeks. And I thought that was very interesting. And I kind of looked into that a little bit. And there is a school in Vancouver, Maple Grove Elementary. CTV did a news op on them. I'm just going to read you some of the things that they sent out to their parents in an email. It says parent pickup and drop off will be staggered, and student desks will be spaced 2 meters apart. Each desk will have a square taped around it, and students will have to put up their hand if they want to leave their desk. Students will be asked to stay still until asked to move. There will be directional pathways taped onto hallway floors. Washroom breaks will be scheduled with just one student allowed to use the bathroom at a time. The gym will be closed. Recess will be staggered and scheduled. And in the email also said, parents, please consider the impact for your child if they have difficulty managing their bodies or following these new expectations. Like, that does not sound fun.
Sounds even for adults is tough.
Yeah. Right. So I think thus far in our conversation, everything that we've talked about, it's in definitely these early stages, these next few months. Yes, kids ministry is technically possible, but is it going to be a positive experience for those kids? Is coming to a church, to a service with all these restrictions, all these guidelines, everything that we've talked about, is that going to be what's best for them? And Emily, like I hear you, like it's a struggle because we also believe in the mental health of these kids, right? They need to be interacting with each other, but not sure if our church Sunday morning program at least it is the way to accomplish that. Right. I think kids ministry is farther down the road than we would like. But when we really think about, kids' experience, and I was just reading we have our children's ministries certificate course that we do through our POC. If anyone is interested, let me know. It's a fun, just 1 year, 2 semester course, goes through a bunch of incredible stuff. But I've been reading through that, and one of the sections was on the first 5 years and those really key developmental stages, and a big part of that is creating a positive experience in those kids' hearts and minds of what church is, right? If they're spending these next few months coming to church and it's not great, that's something that's going to carry with them into their elementary years. So really consider that of, what are we putting these kids through, because we want to really gather and get them back and get back to Sunday morning. So think through, is this going to be a positive experience for these kids? So we're going to go on there's 2 more questions from this article. And I think this is really where the rubber meets the road and where we need everyone to kind of pitch in. And what have you guys been thinking of? Will our church open KidMin right away? I think probably not. Or will we phase it in? And what are some other options, right? I'll just throw out family services. I think, was that Lisa that was saying you got those round tables, right? And maybe bringing families in and doing more services and everyone coming in together, because like Emily said, we need to figure out some way to start building connections and having the mental health of these kids as a priority, and figuring out ways that we can connect them with other families, or life groups, small groups, all that kind of stuff. So what are you guys' thoughts? How can we make this work to be able to do ministry differently than we have been doing it, but still impacting the lives of these families and kids? So what do you guys think?
I had a thought. It's something that I've been praying about, thinking about, and kind of talking with some of our staff from Okanagan Landing Church. So one of the ideas that we had thought about is doing a family service and making it purely for the families, maybe a night during the week, and having families sit together 6 feet apart, of course, and doing some of the options that were on there, like the Simon Says, or doing family challenges, and also recording it as well. So if people don't feel comfortable coming, then we can do it live as well, or have it pre-recorded so families at home can see it. But kind of making it a family service to accommodate more people to come on a Sunday morning, and also have one that they can kind of feel safe, and make it fun enough, short enough to kids don't feel they have to run and leave.
Yeah, what else have you guys been thinking?
I'm thinking that it's still too early to think about getting together. Only because our church is so big, it just doesn't seem like we're there yet. Like, we still need to think about how can we connect online and that in that way, because to me it feels like it's a far way away until we can meet in bigger groups. Trying to meet in groups of 50 and trying to meet with, like, I don't know how many groups of 50 that would be. 14 groups of 50. It's like we couldn't do that. So
I think the hard thing too is if we have to offer two things. If we're trying to do something where people can come and offer online, this now just doubles our work. It sucks.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. And maybe it starts dividing people where they're like, I can't believe you're going to church, or why are you not coming to church? Or it's like so tricky.
Yeah, I think, like, on that, making sure that as churches that we're not putting pressure on each other, not judging each other of, oh, this church is opening, oh, we should open, and all that, or this church is doing online or doing family services, can we do that? Like, needing to find out what's best for your church and your community, not comparing yourself to what other churches are doing. Get insight from them, grab ideas from them, but not feeling pressured either way to open or stay closed, and do what's best for your community. So what are some other things that you guys have been thinking about? And maybe it hasn't come to a conversation yet in your staff and church, but maybe just in your own minds, maybe even just as this conversation has been happening. What are some of the things to consider?
Something we did do, and I know APA has done it before too, is we did a drive-through. So it was just a way, again, it's not a service, but it was just a way that people could connect. And we did a drive-through on Mother's Day. So mothers could come get flowers, and we did the whole, like, social distance, gloves, all that kind of stuff. But then I could sit and talk to the kids in the car from 6 feet away, but it wasn't as awkward because they're in the car. And so it's not like it just looked like I was standing outside the car talking to them. So that was something that at least I could connect in person. and just to sit and talk with them for a few minutes. And it was really fun, and still with like keeping with everything without too much traumatizing them.
Yeah, is anyone getting any pressure from pastors or board members or congregants to open sooner than you feel comfortable? It's like lots of shaking heads. That's good news. We've got wind of some of that already happening in our churches, which makes things difficult for sure when there's that now inter-church division. So yeah.
It seems like
I get that.
young adults and youth and middle schoolers want to start doing groups together, right? Outside or something, like social distancing that, but it's kind of hard with kids. And I like whoever DPC is who wrote about the mini children's ministry in the life groups.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe family ministry, helping parents do that more is, I don't know, something that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good way forward, a great idea. Can we equip life group leaders, parents, to find those families? Because as we're allowed to kind of just do one level of increase of our bubble, add that one, maybe two families to the people that we're in contact with. How can we, ensure that those families are able to, have their little mini service or equip their kids and that? So I'm keeping those strong. Any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on small group kids ministry?
One thing that we've been, I guess that we've been considering. Sorry, my Sharon's talking to me. No, so I know for our church, we had the capability of opening our youth ministry back up within the next couple of weeks. Like, we have the space to do it socially distanced, and we had the right protocols in place. But when we were looking at it, we said, how different would this be from meeting online? Like, how much would it actually enhance the experience? Like, what do the youth value, and can we give it to them in person? And when we were looking at it, everything that we had the capability to do, it was essentially, well, it was actually exactly what we were doing online, except it risked making people uncomfortable by asking them to go. It risked excluding more people, and even having potentially more frustrations with the youth, like, hey, we're all going to gather and we can talk, but we can't do small groups like how we used to do. And we can play games, but we're playing the same games that we're playing online. So we've just been kind of working through that, like, okay, we can reopen, we know how to do it, but it's like going through the pros and cons, like how different would this be and how much would it enhance the experience? I think that also is kind of how we're trying to work through other aspects, looking at doing small groups, because opening up to like small groups with just a couple of families meeting, if they can make that decision themselves, that could be really great for some of them. So just kind of, yeah, looking at just even if we can do it safely, how different would it be, and how comfortable would families feel, which I guess is what we're all trying to do. But yeah.
Yeah. This has been really good, and we're just running into our 3:00 end time here. We've got a few more minutes left. Last question that we had, and we can kind of maybe just leave this for everyone to think about, unless anyone has a really thought that they just want to chime in on. But that's, how can we use this opportunity to change what we do? Not going back to what ministry looked like in February, or not having that as the goal, right? It sounds like most of us aren't in a rush to get back. as much as we want to. We realize that it's not the not the best way to go. It's as slow and steady is where we need to take things. But how has this whole thing changed the way you think about ministry, and what opportunities has it brought? And what is our goal to get to back to what February 2020 looked like, or how has that shifted? And one other last thing to leave with you guys, and Naomi already alluded to this, she said this, was think about how much you guys can handle. How much can your staff do? Think about your own sustainability. Can you handle adding more to your plate? Can you do online and in person? Whatever that's going to look like. If you're trying to equip small groups, if you're going to do a family ministry service, if you're going to do, I've heard some churches, they might do like a Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, something just to get people in the building. And you think about that, I'm like, every night of the week, like, that's insane.
No thanks.
But people are desperate to get in person again, right? They're just looking any which way they can. So with all that, make sure that you're looking at your own life, your own self-care, making sure that you're not overworking yourself and adding too many things to your plate. Really evaluate how much can you do and focus on those top few things that will really make the biggest difference. And I hope everyone here has a good relationship with their lead pastors and their staffs, to be able to have these open conversations. And if that's something that you guys struggle with, if there is tension, if there is conflict, always feel free to reach out to me. We can, if you just need someone to talk to about that. If I need to send someone from our district office to go, give a whack to your lead pastor and set them straight. We're all about kids and family ministry here. We want to cheer you guys on and making sure that you guys are being able to do the best things you can do for the kingdom. So keep on doing what you guys do best, and know that we are praying for you. Please feel free to interact with our Facebook group. I'm going to put a link to that right now in our chat. And please, whenever you find something that you feel was worth your time reading, share it with everyone else. Because if you found it enlightening, if you found some good points on there, chances are there's going to be someone else that's going to find it useful. So connect on there throughout the weeks, and getting the sense, and very encouraged by this, that we're taking things slow and steady. And I think that was kind of one of the biggest concerns, is that, at least for our district office, is that people were going to jump into things too quickly, and just kind of right out of the gate, just try to start meeting again and getting back to what February looked like. So very encouraged to hear everyone's thoughts and perspectives, and know that, no, we are taking our time. We're thinking this through. We're thinking what's best for our families, what's best for our kids. We want to do this the right way, and not just try to get back to what was, but how can we make this the best experience, and how can we show the gospel and God's love in the best way possible for our families and our community, right? Thinking about those people inside our church and outside our church, online and beyond. So I think our next conversation sounds like possibly will be around, okay, Sunday morning, what we would like to get back to is going to be pretty far in the distance. So what can we do in the meantime? Is that a family service? Is that life group services with kids engagement? Is that something midweek? What can we do outside of Sunday morning? So start thinking about those things. And again, love to hear from you guys. If you have any thoughts in the meantime, share them on our Facebook group. we'll connect there. But until next time, let me pray for you all, and then we'll head on with our days. So let's pray. God, I just thank you so much for this incredible group of leaders that we have. God, I just pray that you would bless them. God, give them strength, give them perseverance. God, they have all been going through this season that they did not expect. They've been dealing with things that they didn't know that they would have to deal with. They've been coming up with ideas that they never thought they would have to do. So God, I just ask that you would just give them a supernatural strength. God, may they take time to rest and rejuvenate. May they take time for self-care as they care for their flock. God, may you instill incredible creativity into their minds and hearts. May they lead your kingdom forward in incredible, new, fresh, inspiring ways. God, may they open their fists to what they've been holding on to. These things that are from the past that they really wish they could keep on going forward, but you've just been asking them to let go. God, may they let go of those things so that they can continue forward stronger, with more energy, with more passion to impact the lives of families and kids. So go with them, be with them, bless them, and we just pray for them in your name. Amen. Amen. So thank you everyone for coming on. And this has been an incredible time. Let's keep this conversation going on our Facebook group. And we'll see you all in a few weeks. And we can kind of talk about some more nitty-gritty details of maybe we can do some in-person things, but it's going to look totally different. What does a family service look like? What does life group service look like? What does, maybe you're just going to start with elementary people with the last name A to N. You guys can come on Wednesday nights. We're just going to start with something. Whatever that might look like, we can start chatting about that in the future. So take care and enjoy your Friday and weekend.
Okay. Thank you, Austin.